Welcome to MAP, the bi-weekly market access podcast provided by Mars Market Access and Pricing Strategy, which is your healthcare consultancy in the German-speaking markets. Mars makes it as easy as possible for you to get your pharmaceutical, medtech, or digital health product to the market and, of course, get the price it deserves. My name is Stefan Walzer. I'm the founder of Mars and a health economist by training and working in the fields of market access, reimbursement, pricing, and health economics already since 2004. Additionally, I have founded the consultancy P&N Pricing and Negotiations in Healthcare based in Toronto, Canada, which supports companies and individuals globally by coaching, simulations, and training, especially on negotiations. This service is including our innovative virtual reality simulation program and is part of the Negotiation Lab. And now let's learn about the market access and reimbursement systems around the globe. Okay, welcome to another podcast episode. Today we're speaking about something quite specific. One piece is medical devices or medtech in general, and the second component is how that could potentially work in terms of reimbursement market access in France. For that, I have invited, and I'm very happy that we have a real expert also in that kind of matter today as a guest. Welcome, Benoit Salaun. So maybe you can quickly introduce yourself as well for whomever that would not know you, Benoit.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you so much for the invitation and to discuss about French market access in France. So I'm Benoit Salaun. I'm a hospital pharmacist as background. I started MedConsult in 2014 after having worked for pharma and big medical device like Medtronic, St. Jude Medical. 2 years in many positions as reimbursement director and as well business unit director for neuromodulation. So I said I started MedConsult in 2014. Today we have 9 consultants. The company is 11 people working for market access innovation, introducing market access innovation in France.
Very good. Perfect. So we have the right person for the topic, and we can directly jump into it, Benoit. So maybe we start, let's say, more on the top level kind of perspective, maybe more like how does the healthcare system in France approach, let's say, reimbursement / market access for new medical devices, and maybe put already a bit the kind of key factors in order to get a positive decision in that process.
Yes, absolutely, Stefan. This is very specific for France, but not only for France. But the approach for France, especially for new medical devices, is the way that the new medical device is fulfilling an unmet need or compensating a disability. Okay, so that means we may have a technology, but at the end of the day, we have to be sure that this innovation, this medical device, is useful for the patient, is useful for the practitioners. So then, in that way, to get reimbursed in France, the medical device has to provide demonstration of its efficacy and safety. And at the end of the day, this new technology, the question is, can we afford it in France for all the population? This new technology, this new medical device, in which way we will be pricing it. The authorities will price. It's a central process, national process to price it. One of the key difference with the CE marking for the reimbursement, for CE marking, you need to demonstrate the performance of the device. But to get reimbursed in France, it's not enough. Performance is a prerequisite, and the authorities to get reimbursed need the demonstration that having the performance demonstration, on top of that, we demonstrate the medical interest and in which way, again, the medical device is useful for the patient or for the practitioner, but mainly for the patient. That's the main that's the main mindset, the main way to think about reimbursement in France.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very, very interesting. I think you made a couple of interesting points here. I think one is efficacy, safety, and then affordability, obviously, and also usefulness. I mean, when I'm thinking about those kind of terms and thinking about maybe clinical evidence, I mean, you could have different, let's say, perspectives, right? And medtech is very wide, very broad. So is that then as well that, let's say, the decision makers in France are also looking primarily on randomized controlled trials, or
not really? Of course, the randomized, the RCT is the best in class, way to demonstrate the usefulness of a device. But of course, sometimes it's not feasible. And then we have as well international guidelines that may help to recognize. So we do not have always specific data for a device. For innovation, of course, the authorities are waiting for a comparative. Comparative doesn't mean necessarily randomized control. Okay, we may have different design to make comparison versus the gold standard, the current gold standard reimbursed, or the best medical practice. But the way to think in France is, what is the new device? What can it give versus what is today reimbursed and what is today used by the patient? That's the mindset. Okay, but the RCT is of course the best in class way to demonstrate for the demonstration, but not the only way.
Got you. So is there maybe as well a difference in terms of risk classes for medical devices? So if it's a risk class, I don't know, 1, maybe the evidence level is not that high, then maybe a risk class 3 or something like that?
It is as well what has been demonstrated with other device, not really linked to the, of course, with class 3, the safety, the attention for the safety will be important for sure. And the existing, if you come with a device in an existing category with history of reimbursement, of course, the level of evidence will be lower. The request of a level of evidence will be lower than for a new, innovative, implantable device. So that's always something to assess upfront the application, to check, and this is exactly what we are doing at MedConsult in assessing the clinical data set, the data set that the company, the device has, to say, okay, you will have the chance to be reimbursed, or you have to continue homework to get reimbursed, because the level of evidence is not for the authorities as good as it was for the other devices.
Got you. Okay. And I mean, you said as well that, let's say, randomized control trial is maybe not the only, it is the highest, but maybe not the only way to get into the discussions. It's maybe as well more the comparative kind of character of a study, maybe to call it like that. So are there also registries which would then be acceptable? And would you also, or would the system, for example, also pay, let's say, for a device while maybe still collecting data? Is that as well a possibility?
Yes, absolutely. And often the HTA agency is asking that after the reimbursement. So they said, okay, it's okay, but you have to continue to collect prospectively, in registries data. But that has to be done in a good methodology, in a good way, with a good assumption, even though it's a registry. Okay, it has to be methodologically valid, and then we may have the opportunity to check that with the authorities, with early meetings with the authorities, and before starting a clinical study to demonstrate the efficacy or the safety, we may have the chance to check with the authorities.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And final question as well, maybe final one.
Yeah, what is important, Stefan, for France, what is very important, so the HT agency, they cannot accept posters, presentation in symposiums or something like that. We need at least a publication or clinical reports to argue and to build the argument for and to build the demonstration.
Okay, very, very good. And maybe linked to that would have been anyway my kind of question as well. Is it necessary to have French data, or is it okay as well to have maybe call it Western style kind of evidence?
Yeah, very good question that a lot of customers are asking to Medconsult. So the day you are explaining that the disease and the way to treat the patient pathway is the same as in France is okay. So you don't need really French data as soon as you are able to explain that the data you get outside France are transposable to the French context. So there are some diseases that all the patients across the world are suffering, and then you can say that the procedure, there are international guidelines in the way to treat the patient. And then you say that even though the data are collected, I don't know where, east part of Europe, whatever the country, and you can explain that this is exactly the same kind of patient, the same disease, the same environment, so that the data are valid, of course.
Okay, perfect. Okay, maybe taking a bit of a step further and getting a bit more to the details. How would you, or could you maybe describe the process a bit more in detail? So what would, for example, companies need to do in order to then finally submit, let's say in France, to obtain reimbursement? So which kind of, dossier pieces or whatever is needed? Are there oral hearings? So what is the process overall?
Yeah, the general way is to build two dossiers to apply with two dossiers, a clinical technical dossier that moves to the HT agency. And then you have to build an economic dossier that moves to the economic committee located at the Ministry of Health. So the application technically takes 6 months, okay? 3 months, the first step at the HT agency that will assess, give opinion on the clinical data, the interest for the device to get reimbursed. And after these 3 months, so then if the applicant gets a positive opinion, that the application moves to the Ministry of Health for pricing. We have 2 steps, HTA assessment, first step, and economic pricing decision, second step. That's more or less the general way to get reimbursed. But one point, Stefan, which is very important, sometimes for some categories of devices, the reimbursement application is not necessary because we have history already, categories, priced category with many devices that are already priced. And if you fit with this category, you have the CE mark. The prerequisite is to get the CE mark. You get in that existing category. It's a generic category. And you don't have to apply for reimbursement if you fit with this existing category, which is already reimbursed. This is the analysis. That's the analysis that we are doing at Medconsult before starting. Okay,
yeah, that makes sense.
Just to say, okay, what is the roadmap? What is the good roadmap?
Exactly. That makes a lot of sense. And I mean, if you would, let's say, think that you would fit into that category, would you need to, let's say, still get a confirmation by, I don't know, the authorities, or would you just say you launch and basically claim to be part of that category?
No, you have just to declare it. You are not waiting for any authorization. You are not waiting for any authorization. You have just to declare that you are entering the market with the CE mark, and that means you agree with the existing price. So, okay, the technical characteristic, you have the technical characteristic that fits with the category and say, okay, I accept the price. So then I declare that I'm entering the market in that category.
Got you. Okay, perfect. And I mean, beforehand, you as well said that there's a split between, let's say, the clinical or technical component, which is one assessment. And then there is the second part, which is the pricing. For the first part, I think you have already given some kind of timings. How long does the pricing piece normally last? I mean, I know that there might be quite long ranges or big ranges, right? But just to get a bit of a, just a bit of a feeling, right?
Yeah. I will say the price negotiation can take from 3 months to 1 year or more than 1 year. So we have seen some products that which never find the agreement with the French authorities, and at the end of the day that decided to remove or to stop negotiating because we have, I will say, the gap between the price request and what the authorities are ready to pay for is too huge. So then I have some example in mind where devices that got positive opinion from the HT agency never entered the French market because the company refused the proposal from the Ministry of Health and the Economic Committee. We have some example like that.
Yeah, I can imagine exactly. I mean, it could obviously very well be that maybe the medical component is seen, let's say, in favor, but the prices may be a bit of the issue. And is that then primarily and especially around affordability? What you mentioned let's say, early on when we have started to speak, and related question to affordability, is that let's say, purely, let's say, the kind of simplified budget impact, which means number of patients multiplied by the price?
Very good point, Stefan. France is mainly the price negotiation is mainly driven by budget impact.
Got you.
Nevertheless, for some situation where the budget impact, the expectation of the budget impact is up to couple of millions euros per year, then you have to provide economic cost effectiveness. You may have to provide cost effectiveness study, application as well to the HT agency. This is the second application. It's rare for medical device because the threshold is 20 millions per year, VAT excluded by indication. So that means we have a rare situation in France by experience where the applicant has to build this dossier, cost effectiveness dossier, on top of the technical dossier.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's
it's much more frequent for pharma, for drugs, than for okay. So that's why the price negotiation in the general case, the price negotiation is driven by budget impact for the French healthcare system.
Yeah. And maybe linked to that, but also broader, is there a difference between, let's say, a product which is being used in the inpatient setting versus a product which is being used in the outpatient setting? Could be different budget, but could also potentially be maybe even different kind of system.
Yes. The main process is to go through the economic committee that is negotiating, fixing the price for hospital, inpatient or outpatient. So let's say if we took the example of glucose monitoring or implants, whatever the settings where the device is used, the economic committee is fixing the price and the tariff. They introduce differences with digital health So where we have already agreed a pricing grid that has been set up, and then if by volumes and pricing, so we know in advance for digital health, if we get that level of evidence and this number of patients, we reach that number of patients, we have already agreed a price grid that is already set up. So there is no negotiation through the economic committee. That's a brand new process for digital health. We have another pricing model pathway, which is almost different with for innovations like forfait innovation or prise en charge transitoire temporary funding process, where the economic committee is not involved, but we have the other administrative officials that are negotiating the price outside the economic committee. Well, it's the French cooking, it's the French way to give to complexify the processes. So that's the French style.
Oh, that's interesting. The French style, yes. I mean, you said digital health, but I mean, digital health is also very broad, right? So is that pricing grid applicable to anything which is digital health? For example, telemonitoring, the same as for digital health?
That's the point. That's the point where we are frequently asked at MedConsult. So that the DIGA is a bit different. So we have digital health, telemonitoring. The main process for France is telemonitoring, but not only. But often the applicant and the companies are thinking that for telemonitoring, it is easy to get reimbursed versus standard devices. Not at all. Okay, the mindset for the assessment for HT opinion, it's exactly the same. So they took some different criteria. We have always mortality, morbidity, but as well organizational impact, organizational outcome, in which way a digital app, digital solution is changing the pathway where the patient is followed, and in which way we may, give accurate treatments, accurate follow-ups, and that this organizational dimension is more and more considered in France.
Got you. Yeah, that's also an interesting aspect. Yeah.
So that's why sometimes we have often we are comparing DIGA and PECAN. This is the temporary process, but PECAN is not a fast track. PECAN is definitely not a fast track. It's still as not complicated, but as defined. So we have a lot of prerequisites, a lot of information to give to the authorities to fully understand the app, the digital solution, in which way it works, in which way the algorithms are built, what was the validation of the algorithm, and what was the study implemented to demonstrate that the digital solution is, again, given interest for the patient or for the practitioners. The focus is much more on patients today. So we have digital health, of course, helping the practitioners, but the main focus of the HT agency is digital health for patients and telemonitoring mainly.
Okay, got you. Perfect. You mentioned now as well a couple of, as far as I understood, evolvements, changes over the last recent years. I think you mentioned let's say a bit of more the French way, as you called it, for innovation, and now you have also spoken a bit about digital health. Are these the main changes, let's say, in terms of market access processes in France, or are there as well other evolvements, or maybe even further discussions currently ongoing?
No, definitely, it's more or less stable. The way to assess the devices, even though that it's different processes for digital health, but the main process stay the same. Okay. The key concern that we have in France is still the situation where we have a new device that generates a new procedure codes, okay, a new practice, and then we are still bottlenecks where we have a new device generating a new procedure code. The procedure code, you know that for Germany, that the procedure code is driven, the DRG at the hospital, the procedure code is driven to the DRG, so then impacting the hospital finance, and then in France as well, the private physician fees, the fees for the private practitioners. So that means the procedure code, we have no administrative deadlines to get assessed. So that means we can delay the entry on the French market for a new device, waiting for the procedure code. And that it's still not solved, definitely solved. We are waiting decrees in France to facilitate that, but this is still the bottleneck when we have innovation that needs to create specific procedure codes.
Got you. Okay, very interesting.
But in general, the process, the way to think about reimbursement in France is almost the same for the two last decades.
Got you. Okay. I mean, it gives some kind of certainty, obviously, at least for, let's say, companies working and approaching the French market, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have margin changes. Sometimes they would like to move some categories from the on-top licences, the on-top payment. We have that way to the global coverage by the DRG. Okay, so to remove from the on-top payment to the all-inclusive DRG payment. So this is still discussion in which way we move one category, one way to be funded to another way to be funded. That's the trade-off today from the French administration to maintain its such funding category or to move to another category. So that's why at MedConsult we are often asked in which way this category of product with the price expectation may join and jump in that category that way, and we build the appropriate roadmap and advice to our customers.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So moving a bit towards the end, I mean, there are a lot of information, obviously, especially when somebody's maybe not, let's say, familiar with, I mean, the French way in a very broad sense. Which kind of recommendation would you basically give, especially maybe a company from outside of France, if they are thinking about launching their Medtech product in France? I mean, key things to remember or key things to do before maybe really moving to the French direction?
Yes, it's to make sure we have recent cases to make sure that you are ready to enter the French market. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I say the reimbursement, it's not necessarily the holy grail. Okay, mm-hmm. We may have a good success story, commercial success story in France without reimbursement. Mm-hmm. It's just a question of, I would say, price levels, okay, for sure. It's like volumes that you would like to reach in France. And then the strategy, it's a key strategic decision to request to apply for reimbursement or not. Because of course, so we say for some categories of products, so you don't have the choice. For example, if you would like to today to go in France with coronary DES, deregulating stents for coronary disease, and you are not reimbursed, no way you won't sell any units in France. So that's so we have to check the device, the environment in which way the device is used, the existing device, at which price they are sold today in France with hospital tenders, and MedConsult is covering all these aspects, all these items, and to say, okay, the best way to get in France is, of course, to get reimbursed with that clinical or not, and you can go directly on the market, switching the reimbursement processes, or just going into existing categories. Okay, but again, the application, the reimbursement is not always the holy grail.
Got you. Okay, I think that's a very good point. I mean, and that's probably as well a good discussion point for maybe an upcoming podcast episode. But I think we can pause that probably for now. And obviously, if somebody is interested in that kind of, let's say, other directive kind of routes, for sure, reach out to Benoit. Yeah. But I think, I think for now, for today, Benoit, I think I want to thank you. I think we have already filled the roughly 30 minutes, which is the normal kind of time of each episode. I think was really insightful. I mean, I learned as well a lot. I think we've seen a couple of, let's say, similarities to other markets, so especially maybe the German markets. But clearly, I like the way, as you said, there are some clear French ways to, let's say, work with the medical devices, Medtech, in your country. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Benoit.
Thank you so much, Stefan. Have a good day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
I think there are a lot of, let's say, interesting components. I think some are for sure for the general, let's say, standard pathway where the process is split between the clinical component and also the economic component, which is more the kind of pricing, let's say, approach. That's what we, at least in Germany, for example, know, but really only from the drug area, the AMNOG process, but not for medical devices as well. I think timing sounds rather a bit more, if I can say that, reasonable if compared to some other areas, some other countries. But also, for example, in Germany, if you would need to go through the method evaluation, which might take a bit longer. Most important anyway is also what Benoit said, especially towards the end. I mean, if considering really France, and that's probably more true for any kind of country, be ready, which would also mean know the environment, know the options as well, because maybe also in France there might be as well pathways besides and beyond the reimbursement environment. For some areas that's not a choice, but for some you could have a choice. Keep in mind, if you would, for example, as well fulfill the innovation kind of criteria, which would mean that you would not need to go through the economic committee as far as I understood, but rather through a separate kind of negotiation way. That's a buzzword, the French way, as Benoit said. But the same thing as well applies for digital health. That's very important that there are already some price set grids given. So need to check if that might as well be applicable. I think overall, I think the be ready is probably the most important thing to also understand how, for example, French payers might see the evidence. RCT are not always the kind of key criteria. The second thing is obviously how and where the different kind of codes are available. And finally, then also that kind of reimbursement pathway. And for sure, kind of quick final word, if you need to know that, maybe as well think about Max Insights, our artificial intelligence for early reimbursement planning.
That was an episode of MAP, the market access podcast provided by Mars Market Access and Pricing Strategy, which is your healthcare consultancy in the German-speaking markets. MAP is available every second week with a new episode, so watch out. And in case you might have questions, contact me directly and or visit our website on www.marketaccess-pricingstrategy.de.